Naval command ships are an important part of all navies around the world. They let Navy troops control important sea lanes, making sure that military personnel can get to their destinations safely. As an important part of keeping the sea safe, they defend against strikes from enemy ships. These ships are used by the Navy to do amphibious tasks as well, like moving troops and supplies from the sea to the land. Because Navy ships can do many things and move quickly, they're also responsible for reacting to natural disasters. An aircraft carrier or an amphibious assault ship are just a few of the military ships that are used for naval aviation. These ships increase the range and power of airplanes so they can fly over large parts of the ocean unimpeded. This is the USS Blue Ridge, the LCC-19. It's the leader of the 7th Fleet and the larger of the two Blue Ridge-class amphibious command ships in the U.S. Navy. Her main job is to help the captain and staff of the U.S. 7th Fleet with command, control, communications, computers, and intelligence. She's now sent ahead to U.S. Navy Fleet activities, Yokosuka in Japan. She's the third Navy ship to be named after the Blue Ridge Mountains, a group of mountains in the eastern United States Appalachian Mountains. After the USS Denver was taken out of service, Blue Ridge is now the oldest warship still in use in the U.S. Navy. The Blue Ridge flies the first Navy Jack instead of the United States Jack because it's the U.S. Navy ship that's been active for the longest total amount of time. Blue Ridge is planned to stay in the sea until 2039. The ship measures about 634 feet in length with a beam of 108 feet and also comes with a 28.9-foot draft. The ship can travel up to a speed of 23 knots and has a range of around 18,520 kilometers. The ship carries two Phalanx CIWS, two 25mm Bushmaster cannons, and 8 50 caliber M2 Browning machine guns. Due to budget cuts in the late 1960s, the USS Estes was taken out of service earlier than planned in October of 1969. The Blue Ridge was supposed to take its place. The Blue Ridge was the first ship in her class, and it took almost 7 years to plan and build her. As a result, the ship was built from the ground up to be a command and control ship. Blue Ridge was built so that it could help both the commander of an amphibious task force and the commanding general of the landing forces staff. The most advanced joint amphibious command and control center ever built was made with a cutting-edge computer system, a full set of messaging tools, and up-to-date surveillance and detection systems. The Blue Ridge had the world's most advanced technology suite when she was first put into service. It was said to be about 30% bigger than the suite on the aircraft carrier USS John F. Kennedy, which had been the most advanced. As a command ship, Blue Ridge had a main battery of computers, radio equipment, and other electronic tools to help her do her job efficiently and effectively. A highly advanced communication system was also an important part of the ship's completely new design. Her team could use any mix of communication tools they wanted, thanks to an automated patch panel and a computer-controlled switching matrix. The clean topside area is a result of careful planning that tried to keep the ship's comm system from getting messed up too much. For long-distance communications in the U.S. Navy in the 1970s, high-frequency radio systems were important. In the 2000s, satellite communications have become the main way they talk to each other. This is shown by the long-wire antenna and the directional HF Yagi or log periodic antenna that were first put up on Blue Ridge, but were later taken down and replaced with a number of satellite communications antenna. Blue Ridge's first trip took her from the shipyard to her first home port in San Diego, California on January 11, 1971. She went around South America via the Strait of Magellan, stopping at Norfolk, Virginia on February 15th, Rio de Janeiro in March, Lima at the end of March, and Rodman Naval Station, Panama Canal Zone, and Acapulco. At that time, the Panama Canal locks were only 110 feet wide, which made it hard for ships in the Blue Ridge class to use fenders and barges for the pontoons. Blue Ridge's beam was 108 feet, which made this difficult. On February 26th, at 38 degrees and 24 minutes longitude, the ship Blue Ridge crossed the equator on its way to Rio de Janeiro. It was there that most of the crew were initiated into the WOG tradition, but one was not. In March 1971, Blue Ridge went through the Strait of Magellan. When the Blue Ridge got to the Strait of Magellan, it hired a passage pilot from the Chilean Navy to help with the trip. As they tried to board, the Chilean patrol boat lost its mast and damaged one of Blue Ridge's basked antenna, which is located just behind the port's pontoon. In her trip from Lima to Rodman Naval Station in Panama, Blue Ridge was told to help any U.S. tuna fishing boats that were being threatened or taken by the Ecuadorian Navy because they were fishing in a fishing zone that the U.S. did not recognize and was 200 miles away. The name for this was the Tuna War. But nothing crazy or extensive happened. On April 9th, Blue Ridge arrived in San Diego with Rear Admiral David M. Rubel, U.S. Navy Commander Amphibious Group 3, and his team on board. The first flag officer to board Blue Ridge was Rear Admiral Rubel. At the Rodman port call, workers from Amphibious Group 3 got on board Blue Ridge. The next port call would be Acapulco. Command post exercises from May 3rd through 7th and August 11th through 13th stood out from the rest of the year. In late June and early July, there was refresher training. From September 8th to September 16th, Blue Ridge was the leader of the landing force and an amphibious task force during Ropoval Wesco, the largest amphibious training exercise of the year. After her time at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, Blue Ridge had her first dry dock at the Long Beach Naval Shipyard from October 11th to November 19th. A Navy Standard oil fuel was changed to Navy distillate fuel at Blue Ridge's power plant. From 1972 until 1979, Blue Ridge deployed to the Western Pacific on 6th Westpacs as the flagship of the Commander Amphibious Force, 7th Fleet. Blue Ridge left its home port of San Diego on January 7, 1972, after degaussing at the deperming facility at Ballast Point. It steamed to Pearl Harbor to start her first Westpac deployment, stopping at Guam, Sasebo, Japan, White Beach, Okinawa, Subic Bay, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Going to the West Pacific, Guam on the next part of the trip with the USS Sterett and USS Mahan, 4 Soviet surveillance planes flew over the convoy to get information about the new ship while it was in transit. Going to Singapore, the ship crossed the equator on February 27, 1972. This was Blue Ridge's second crossing the line celebration. More port visits were planned, but on March 30, 1972, North Vietnam attacked South Vietnam across the Vietnamese Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ. At the same time that Blue Ridge was getting ready to exercise Golden Dragon at White Beach, Okinawa, the offensive was called the Easter Offensive. This invasion was the biggest since the Korean War and was very different from earlier offensives. It was meant to make things easier for North Vietnam as the Paris Peace Accords got closer to being finished. Because of the problems caused by the Arab oil embargo of 1973, Blue Ridge was on its way back to White Beach, Okinawa from a port call in Singapore. It was the first combatant ship in the 7th Fleet to refuel at sea with a commercial tanker, taking on 158,000 gallons of Navy distillate from the Falcon Princess. Blue Ridge was in the South China Sea as the command ship for a joint drill with the Philippine Navy called Pagasa II near the end of its second Westpac tour. One of the ensigns on Blue Ridge went overboard without being seen. When they weren't there for a watch muster, the ship's crew searched every room for the missing officer. After not being able to find him on September 28, 1973, a search and rescue operation began, but failed. The ensign was reported lost at sea 2 days later, and exercise Pagasa II began again. On October 1, 1973, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow was told that the Soviet trawler Agi Kurzgavkrev had found an American sailor in Blue Ridge's operation area. The next day, After international talks, the ensign was safely returned to Blue Ridge. At the end of Pegasi 2, bad tropical weather meant that the staff couldn't go from Blue Ridge to Denver as planned. Instead, they had to stay in White Beach, where they arrived on October 7th. On October 8th, Blue Ridge set sail for its home port of San Diego, carrying a patrol craft fast on the deck of its chopper. Blue Ridge got to San Diego on October 23, 1973. The USS Oklahoma City, which was the flagship of the 7th Fleet, was taken out of service in December of 1979. The Blue Ridge then became the new flagship of the U.S. 7th Fleet. It has been stationed at Yokosuka Naval Base, Japan, ever since. From July 21, 1979 to June 30, 1984, Blue Ridge and other ships in the West Pacific took part in Operation Boat People, which saved Vietnamese refugees. They were later awarded the Humanitarian Service Medal for their extensive efforts in the operation. As an example, on October 6, 1980, while crossing the South China Sea, the Blue Ridge took on Vietnamese refugees from 2 different small boats. The first one, seen before noon, had a total of 54 people inside. The second, with 37 people on board, left on Blue Ridge soon after 1800 hours. When they were seen, both boats were dangerously overloaded and drifting away. All 54 refugees in the first boat were healthy because they'd only been at sea for a few days. All 37 refugees in the second boat were thirsty, and many were so weak that they couldn't stand, and they had to be helped aboard the Blue Ridge. The 37 was lost a long way from the shipping lane after the second boat broke down. At first, it wasn't clear how long they'd been at sea, but they'd been without clean water for a long time. Also on May 5, 1984, 35 refugees were saved by Blue Ridge in the South China Sea, about 650 kilometers northeast of Cam Ranh Bay. From August 28, 1990 to April 24, 1991, Blue Ridge served as the flagship for the head of U.S. Naval Forces Central Command during Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm. For her service, the ship received a Navy Unit Commendation. For the 300th anniversary of the Russian Navy in July 1996, Blue Ridge went to Vladivostok. In February of 2000, Blue Ridge was part of the Interfernet Foreign Force in East Timor. Blue Ridge regularly takes part in U.S. and Allied training drills every year with nations in the Indian Ocean and in the Western Pacific. To give you an example, the Blue Ridge took part in Annual X-21G with the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force and PASIX with the French Navy in 2009. After the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, Blue Ridge was one of many companies that helped with Operation Tomodachi. Even though Blue Ridge brought aid from Singapore to Japan, it stayed near Okinawa so that the U.S. 7th Fleet staff could provide command and control during Operation Tomodachi. After getting off Blue Ridge, the 7th Fleet Band played shows in Japan to remember the people who died in the tsunami. The Blue Ridge sailors joined French sailors in the Victory Day Parade of the Russian Navy's Pacific Fleet in Vladivostok on May 9, 2010. The parade itself took place in the city park. The officer checking out the parade greeted the sailors, and they answered with a threefold loud "Ura" in the Russian way. A ship-based MH-60S chopper crashed on January 5, 2020, about 60 nautical miles from Okinawa, Japan. After search and rescue efforts, all 5 crew members were found to be safe, and it was planned that the ship would stay in use until 2039. Blue Ridge was given the Combat Action Ribbon on July 18, 1972, for her work at Tiger Island. On August 9, 1972, the ship was given the Battle E by the leader of the U.S. Pacific Fleet's Amphibious Force. It was the only one Blue Ridge got before the award was changed a lot in 1976, and it's not mentioned as a Navy E ribbon on the page for unit awards. From 1977 to 2010, Blue Ridge got 15 Navy E ribbon awards. Blue Ridge was given the Vietnam Service Medal and 2 campaign stars. One is for the Consolidation II campaign of 1972, and the other is for the Vietnam ceasefire campaign, or the Eastern Counteroffensive of 1972. They spent a total of 99 days in combat, not adding 18 days that were not counted in July of 1972. NavySource.org says that Blue Ridge may have won the Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal for 6 months of service off the coast of South Vietnam from February to July of 1972. And the crew didn't paint the Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal on the ship's bridge wing in 1993 or 2011. The Navy Unit Award page does not list the award. The U.S. Embassy in Cambodia was evacuated during Operation Eagle Pool, which took place from April 11th to April 13th, 1975. The Blue Ridge was given the Meritorious Unit Commendation, the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, and the Humanitarian Service Medal. When Operation Frequent Wind took place in Saigon, South Vietnam from April 29th to April 30th, 1975, Blue Ridge was given the Navy Unit Commendation, the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, and the Humanitarian Service Medal. The Blue Ridge was given the Humanitarian Service Medal for its work in 1980 and 1984 to save Vietnamese people on boats. Along with the Southwest Asia Service Medal, the Kuwait Liberation Medal and the Kuwait Liberation Medal Blue Ridge got the ship's second Navy Unit Commendation for Desert Shield and Desert Storm. During Operation Tomodachi, the ship was also given the Joint Meritorious Unit Award and the Humanitarian Service Medal. In 2010, Blue Ridge won the Captain Edward F. Ney Memorial Award, which they won several times. So what are your thoughts on the extensive service record and history of this acclaimed naval vessel? Make sure you let us know in the comments section down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.